Across America, you're listening to the Veterans Impact Show, featuring stories of veterans who continue the mission in their communities with honor, courage, and commitment. Brought to you by Fairway Independent Mortgage Corporation and the Texas Veterans Chamber of Commerce. Great day. This is Jim Blythe, U.S. Navy veteran. I'm here to kind of captain this ship into the airwaves. Joining me, my partner and the guy who I started this with, Marine Corps veteran Chuck Wright, better known as take a helicopter and beat the air into submission, right?
Absolutely.
You
Absolutely.
know, this is Women's History Month nationally, but when it comes to veterans initiatives, veterans involvement, as well as veterans taking care of veterans, there is one person in this whole North Texas region that has become like a little sister, but also a commanding officer. I would like to welcome Ginger Simonson, Lieutenant Colonel, United States Army, retired, and probably one of the most active people I've ever seen in the veterans community and what she does for our community altogether. Welcome aboard. We're so glad to have you, Ginger.
Thank you so much for having me today, Jim. Women's History Month is an exciting time. I know women veterans are excited that the VA has made this a specific and special time for women to celebrate their service. So it's an honor to be here, and I really appreciate your kind words.
Well,
I'm proud. I was just going to say, I'm proud to have known Ginger for years now. I don't think there is anybody who embodies better the concept of Charlie Mike. Continue the mission, continue our service to our nation and our community than Colonel Ginger Simonson.
Well,
she is awesome.
Yeah, without a doubt. Ginger.
And recognized by Congressman Michael Burgess of the 26th District with the Congressional Veteran Commendation Award.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, a good friend in the Frisco area actually decided I needed to be put in for that award, that recognition, and he's sitting to the right of me, Chuck Wright.
Well, I wasn't the only one. We'll give a shout out to retired Navy Captain Chris Hampton and more than a few others who wrote letters of recommendation for that. So that was a pretty cool day. And she got that on November 10th, the Marine Corps birthday, how fitting, in 2016.
Wow, you remember better than I do, Chuck.
Well,
One, it was the Marine Corps birthday, so that made it easy.
that makes it that makes it easy. Ginger, just very briefly, tell us about your service, because I know you were in Iraq and I know you were in Greece. So would you tell us a little bit about your service as a military officer?
So I actually enlisted back in 1980 after I graduated from the University of Texas at San Antonio.
Very nice.
And basically, I went to basic training, I went to officer candidate school, and I became an Army logistician, quartermaster at that time. And I had a whole bunch of interesting experiences, but, several stand out. The first was serving in the 1st Cav Division, where the generals I served under were General Wesley Clark, also General Eric Shinseki, and then finally General Laporte, maybe not as well known, but a terrific commanding general. And 2 other ones stand out for different reasons. One was my service in Greece, which sounds like just a great vacation, and in some ways it was. But what I did there was basically a position of security assistance, and I dealt with foreign military sales. So I helped the Greek army obtain U.S. weapons and supplies and learn how to develop doctrine to employ those on their battlefield. So that was a lot of fun, and I've been thinking about that with the situation in Ukraine. Finally.
Yeah, somebody like you's needed there.
Well, it was a lot of fun, and they really, really appreciated it, and so did I. I appreciated their hospitality. And the last thing that's a pretty big highlight is I had put in my retirement paperwork at Fort Hood after I came back from Greece, and the Army called me and asked if I'd consider one more assignment a nice, quiet transition to retirement assignment with the Army Air Force Exchange Service.
Oh, did you know the commanding general and her husband was a congressman here in Dallas?
She was my commanding officer, Major General Catherine Frost. And my tenure at the Army Air Force Exchange Service coincided with her tenure as the commander. And she sent me to Iraq. So I absolutely
She doesn't get Christmas cards from you, I take it.
Oh, no.
Oh, she's gone.
Sadly, she passed in 2006, August 18, 2006. We all have things we remember.
Ginger, I vaguely remember that you set me up for some dinner deal, and I was sitting next to her. And when I asked her about her service, and then she said who she was, I about fell off the chair. One of the nicest ladies I have ever met. And I mean to tell you, you talk about non-assuming, but she took the Armed Forces Exchange to a new level from what everybody told me.
Wow. That is an amazing story. But the thing is, and the focus of this show, as great as your Army career was, and I've seen your fruit salad, it was pretty impressive. Talk a little bit about what you have been doing since you've got out, because you are truly a leader in the community.
Well, I appreciate that, Chuck. Basically, like many military folks, when you transition out, you still have a strong desire to serve. Mm-hmm. And so I looked around for ways to serve, and God just, threw things on my path. And I was blessed enough not to sidestep those things and lean into it. And so I started out just looking for a mission, and I checked out the VA homeless programs. I did a little bit, researching that. But at the same time, in 2010, 2011, Andy Eads, who's now the judge of Denton County, he asked me to chair the Veterans Advisory Group in Denton County. And as part of that, I did basically a gap analysis of what was going on with veterans, their needs, and the resources available. So that's where it really all started.
And for our listeners, a county judge is not actually a judge. So you weren't working for a man in black robes. Effectively, this is the mayor of the county. So just to kind of, although at the time, Andy was one of 4 county commissioners. And I've known Andy for a little while. I know several of the judges over in Denton County. As you know, I live in Denton County as well. I got to do a quick aside. Did I hear you correctly? You graduated from UTSA in 1980?
I made a point of letting you know, and it was actually in 1979.
Okay.
I worked for a little while before I actually enlisted.
Okay. The reason I say that is I graduated from UTSA in 1980.
I know that, Chuck. I saw your LinkedIn profile.
Oh, there we go. There we go.
Oh,
yeah.
okay. The last guy's got the one-upsmanship. I graduated from the University of Texas in Austin in 1973.
That just means you're old. That's not one-upping anybody.
Oh, no, that was the big one. Hey, let's face it. UTSA was a little parochial school when we were there, which was good for me. I liked it. Small classes.
It was a great campus. My son is thinking about going down there to school. We still have family in San Antonio. I was an Air Force brat, graduated from Randolph High. But let's continue your story, because your service to the community may have started with the Denton County Veteran Advisory Council. I'm not 100% certain what they're called, but you didn't stop there.
Well, as I did the gap analysis, I realized that veterans at that time, 2011, 2012, were having difficulties finding employment. And it turned out, maybe it wasn't really the jobs. Maybe it was the veterans themselves. So I worked with the Texas Workforce Commission and the TVC employment reps in Denton, and they allowed me to basically set up a shop in their conference room. and we just provided resources that veterans and family members could connect to help them out. And that's where I started learning about, post-traumatic stress, military sexual trauma, all the things that may serve as barriers to employment and to life for some veterans.
Well, now, when I met you, you were Military Peer Network, and you were the teacher along with Scott Smith, who basically got me the certification for the Military Peer Network. But that was one of the most amazing classes that I ever went through. So you taught that tremendously effectively up in Denton. And you have been so gracious as to always include Diane and I in activities up there, which is enormous. But you're moving up. Now let's talk again about your passion, because you're moving up with the Military Order of...
Well, let's stick with MVPN, if you
Okay.
don't mind.
Yeah, let's do that.
Just a little bit, because again, God pushed something in front of me. I learned that a lot of veterans couldn't get jobs because they were involved in the criminal justice system. And so, again, God threw something in front of me, this concept of veteran treatment courts. And we didn't have one in Denton County. It was on the books, the county judge had approved it. But we didn't have it. And so I was working very hard to get a veterans treatment court, as were other people in Denton County. And Dr. Linda Shadlack at Mental Health or MHMR Denton County interacted with me at a couple of those meetings about getting a veterans treatment court going. And she basically, backed me into the corner to take a job as the Military Veteran Peer Network coordinator, because I wasn't looking to work. I just wanted to be a volunteer.
Right. So explain to our listeners exactly what a veteran treatment court is, and why it's very, very important.
So basically, it allows a veteran who has, because of their service in general, gotten into trouble with the law. They've been arrested, many for DWIs, and some for simple assaults or, fights in barrooms. So rather than just warehousing them in jails and then prisons, because that's what jails sometimes do, they make, jail prisoners, there was a judge up in New York who came up with the concept, working with Vietnam veterans, to start a veterans treatment court. And it focused on having mentors to remind these justice-involved veterans how to be who they were when they served, their good side. And so basically, the court has been building through the years where treatment is provided, accountability is established, and young men and women can overcome their indiscretions or just their criminal involvement due to service by going through a veterans treatment court, having them expunged their charges.
One of the things I found, because you set me up to be a financial counselor, and what I found was most of these guys and gals that I talked to really understood budgeting, really understood finance. They didn't really understand credit, but most of them had deep-seated needs that went way past that. When you look past the indiscretion, you find something behind it that if you don't address that, you might as well forget it. And that's what Judge Garcia and the Veterans Court. And now we have 4 in the 4 counties, Denton, Collin, Dallas, and Fort Worth. We have 4 judges, but I understand that those judges also take cases from counties around us.
They do.
So let's do this, Chuck. Let's come back and bring this ship back in after a word from all of our partners, which Fairway and your Veterans Chamber of Commerce.
Chamber.
Yeah. So this is Jim Blythe and Chuck Wright with Ginger Simonson. I think she should be the Volunteer of the Year, period.
No, thanks.
All right, we're going to be right back after these words. Thank you for being part of the Veterans Impact Show. Look us up on Facebook, share us, go to our YouTube. We're here for you. Is if you got me involved, you said, hey, would you do this? Hey, would you do that? Loved it. You know, what's the statement that comes from the Travis Manion Foundation? If not me, who?
Exactly.
Okay, so I enjoyed that so much and plugged in. And Chuck, when you and that other person came to me and said, hey, we want you to help us with this radio show because you got a radio background, if not me, who? I jumped in. But how, if you don't get to know the person, if you don't have the network, if you don't, where can you go? How can you get plugged in? Some of the organizations that you guys can think of.
And we can rattle off several of them. It kind of depends on where your interest is. I had this conversation yesterday. Frisco, the city of Frisco, has developed their own Veteran Advisory Council, and I have talked to several other cities about creating something like that. And the new head of it and I were having coffee, and one of the places to start is the County Veteran Service Officer Program. And very proud of the fact that Denton has an outstanding program. Dallas has a good program. Tarrant has a good program. Collin County needs to step up their efforts, quite frankly. But there are several. In fact, one of my favorites now is a group that's really on the rise, and they were concentrated down in Houston. They are now spreading across the state, and that has combined arms in the Texas Veterans Network. If nothing else, to use their website to find all of their, I think they've got a couple hundred partners now. I haven't counted in a while. But lots of organizations that are out there. And you know, one of the best features out there is Googling. What are you interested in doing? Now, one of the things that I want to talk about when we come back, I'd like to drill a little further into the military veteran peer-to-peer network, but I would like to wrap up Veteran Treatment Court, and as we go back on the radio, talk about what that does, a little more detail about the program. It's actually pretty incredible. I believe the first Veteran Treatment Court in Texas was created over in Tarrant County by a former Marine. Thank you very much. No, it wasn't. Which was the first one?
Harris County, actually.
Was it Harris? Okay.
But Judge Carr followed immediately behind.
Okay, so close. And Judge Carr has since stepped down. And Judge Garcia was basically unelected. I haven't seen Judge Garcia since. Great man. Forrest Beadle is now running Denton County. And I absolutely love the program on a statewide basis. And we'll talk about this when we come back. The most powerful part of the Veteran Treatment Court system is the recidivism rate. So one of the major problems with our criminal justice system is we do very little to get somebody ready to reenter society. And because of a lot of political work I did, I have been fortunate to really get to know a lot of politicians, and we have had conversations saying, you know, hey, we need to take a look at the Veteran Treatment Court system because the recidivism rate is, and
15.
often much less than 10%.
You know, Chuck. Welcome back to the Veterans Impact Show. Thanks to our great sponsors, Fairway Independent Mortgage Corporation and the Texas Veterans Chamber of Commerce. Now, let's continue this conversation.
And
well,
hey,
welcome back. Welcome back. This
one
is
of the
Jim
things
Light.
that I wanted to say, and check right, talking with Col Ginger Simonson, but one thing you didn't do, if you're listening, and we appreciate it, please subscribe to our YouTube channel, and it's Veteran Impact Show. Subscribe to or just click like on our Facebook page to continue to follow us. We welcome any comments on Facebook. And if you're going to make a negative comment, Diane will deal with those. The positive comments come to Jim and I.
Hey,
So just to kind of separate the work there.
yeah. Now, to continue the conversation, we're talking with Lieutenant Colonel Ginger Simonson, U.S. Army, but Military Peer Network, so many wonderful things that you've done. Let's wrap up the conversation about the Veterans
We're
Court.
talking about Veteran Treatment Court, and I'm a huge advocate of this program. And one of the reasons that our Facebook crowd heard the recidivism rate, the rate at which the people who go through the system come back into the system is well below 10%. And this is statewide. I get the numbers statewide. It is an incredible program doing a great job. And I have been talking to some of our politicians. There are a lot of things we need to adopt. The veteran treatment court system is not a, hey, sign up and boom, you get it. It is a 12 to 18 month program. Ginger was critical to establishing this in Denton County. And there's an element of this, I'm not kind of sure whether it was the chicken or the egg that led you to the work you're doing now with the Military Veteran Peer Network.
Well, what I actually had going was that Dr. Linda Shadlack asked me to get involved in NVPN while I was, building my involvement with the Veterans Treatment Court. So I basically asked Judge Garcia to include peer groups into the formal program, Veterans Treatment Court program. And it was the best education a peer specialist could get, having groups with combat veterans, right off the battlefields in Iraq, Afghanistan, and really getting a deep appreciation of how much they carried, how much it affected them, and how much they wouldn't talk about it to anybody else.
So that's exactly where I wanted to go with that. So one of the things about the MVPN system is that unlike the VA system, if you go to the VA, and we have, and Jim and I are fans of Dr. Holt and the work that he has done, Jeffrey Milligan, the work that he did before that. We will eventually do an entire show about the VA hospital system, but the negative is, it's officially in your medical records. MVPN is open to both veterans and their families, their spouses, which is a huge benefit. But it has an element of discreet to it. It is not part of your official military record. And what you just said is so powerful. As we slowly get out from behind the stigma of getting mental health, we don't want a lot of that on our records, because guess what? It can be misunderstood and it can be misconstrued. And I think that is two of the most powerful things, one including families in this, and the ability to help a family that's in crisis. And often we don't know why. We don't know why we're angry. We don't know why we're anxious. We don't know why we have these incredible feelings of dread. But talk a little bit about how the MVPN system works. And a little shout out, we mentioned Scott Smith before, good friend of ours, Semper Fi brother. If you're listening, and if you're not, what's wrong with you? But talk a little bit about the MVPN system.
Well, basically, it's built on a core of peer service coordinators that are employed throughout the state by Health and Human Services contracts through local mental health authorities. Kind of complicated, but they're trained by the Texas Veterans Commission on peer support stuff, on learning community resources. And everything they're trained on is brought to bear in helping any veteran, any family member that they meet. So we meet veterans and family members where they are, and then, build trust, and they tell us their story, and that's how we learn how to help them help themselves.
One of the things that we make a point about this with this program, continuing the mission and how veterans impact the community, one of the things that I can tell you is, from sitting next to a judge, a legal judge, he was saying we're starting a drug treatment court patterned after so the veterans led the way. So we're going to be right back. We're going to lead the way to talk about with our partners. This is Jim Blythe and Chuck Wright with Ginger Simonson. We're going to be right back on the Veterans Impact Show. One of the things that we all talked about is the importance of the burn pit registry and what's going on.
Okay.
Because I don't know very much about it, and I'd like to know. So can we go down that road a little bit?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
I got some personal experience on, toxic exposures.
Well, that's
and burn
one of the
pits.
things you and I talked about.
Okay.
How am I doing?
Yeah.
That's why.
Oh, we didn't have it lined up right. Yeah. So I'm doing my best to try to. I'm trying to kiss it, but I'm not trying to slip it any tongue.
You just said that to the whole world.
It's all of our Facebook crowd.
Yeah. that's
They're
a
either
ring.
going to enjoy the humor or they're not.
Yeah, that's for sure.
It's one of those. So yeah, so we're still with the Facebook crowd. We'll come back, and as we come back, we'll talk more, or we'll kind of pivot over to and finish up the show talking about the burn pit and the burn pit registry, which is going to be extremely important as we go forward to take care of our people. I know that our buddy Gus Karbakis, who was an NYPD detective on 9/11, talks about how many that they have lost to a similar calamity, if you will, man-made natural disaster. But so many of the officers and the first responders have passed away from all the nonsense that was in the air.
I think since Vietnam, we have begun to really see toxic situations.
Right.
We had Agent Orange in Vietnam, and it took forever to get everybody to figure it out. Now we've got burn pit, but now also with 9/11, the dust, the asbestos that was in that building.
Well, and very much, and again, we talk about continuing the mission and veterans leading the way. Very much, I think the veterans have been huge, helping reduce the stigma of mental health care. And
Wouldn't you agree, Ginger?
I do, and the burn pits are really, really interesting because they do enter into the realm of mental health and moral injury. Because, you know, you serve your country and you don't do it for monetary reasons. When you join, you don't think about the VA disability benefits you might get
Right.
when you get out because of your service. But it is a moral imperative for the country to take care of our veterans. And as you said, Jim, Agent Orange, it took over 30 years for Congress and the VA to address the fact that Agent Orange caused a whole host of illnesses, diseases, and cancers. And finally, many of those illnesses are now considered to be presumptive service-connected illnesses for Vietnam veterans. Important because it takes you out from having to prove that you are sick because of your service. It is a presumed condition because you served in Vietnam, you were exposed to Agent Orange, and you have diabetes, you have,
Cancer.
cancers.
Almost all of them have had some form of cancer. One of my very, very close friends from college was a Navy SEAL, and he was exposed to it. And he had a child that had some
Spina bifida.
spina bifida, as well as the fact that he died of cancer. And apparently the cancer he got was just vicious and was stage 4 instantly. He did. Welcome back to the Veterans Impact Show. Thanks to our great sponsors, Fairway Independent Mortgage Corporation and the Texas Veterans Chamber of Commerce. Now, let's continue this conversation. Well, this is Jim Blythe, Chuck Wright, and we're talking with the great Ginger Simonson. And I got to tell you guys, when we started this program in 2015, I didn't know anything, and you two guys helped me, led me, got me involved in many things, and I am tremendously appreciative of that and the things and the people I met and the things I learned. And one of the things we're now talking about, and we were talking about on Facebook, is the toxic situation that really got started in Vietnam with Agent Orange. And I'm sure there was things from World War II and from Korea, but now we're dealing with the burn pit thing. And Chuck, we wanted to ask Ginger a little bit about that, and she brought an article. So tell us about that and your personal experience with that.
So real quickly, the University of Texas at San Antonio gave me a degree in biology and chemistry and has really helped point me into research on the burn pit registry and burn pits in general. So I was in Iraq, and so I had firsthand experience smelling them, breathing in the fumes. And more importantly, so did my husband, because he served 3 tours, and one was especially toxic at the Balad airfield. And basically, as he tells me, it was about 3 football fields, in size. It was burning 24 hours a day, and all kinds of things went in there, from petroleum byproducts to body parts from the Balad hospital to every kind of waste you can imagine went in there. And then to keep the fires burning, they threw on either JP8 or some kind of, thing to keep the fires going. Well, what my background at UTSA taught me is that when you mix volatile organic chemicals together, like petroleum products, you create very, very toxic fumes that can cause, to start with, burning eyes, breathing difficulties, and which can possibly progress to various types of cancers. And that's kind of what we started to see emerge as veterans from, Afghanistan, Iraq, as well as, believe it or not, Saudi Arabia, and every place we had a burn pit. You started to see, these conditions happening in veterans. So
I think we had them in Kuwait as well.
Oh, yeah, absolutely, because of all the oil wells that Saddam Hussein set on fire.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So these burn pit issues apply to everybody who served in Gulf War I as well as Gulf War II. Mm-hmm. So why is the burn pit registry important, and what is it? So what it is, it's an opportunity for any veteran who served during the 2 Gulf Wars to sign up on a VA website, basically answer questions about when they served, how long they served, where they served, and what health conditions they're suffering from. And that database basically is accessible in a de-identified form to researchers across the country. And so what the VA can pull from that is, all right, what kind of medical conditions are our veterans experiencing who have served in those areas? And as a direct result of that, the VA has decided that there are 3 new presumptive conditions related directly to service in these Gulf War I and II places. And they're basically, as if I can recall, sinusitis, rhinitis, and asthma. So they're starting with the things that are kind of simpler and easier to prove. Most veterans, who are very concerned about this, are more concerned with the rare cancers that they're developing, as well as very rare lung conditions that they're developing. So I don't know. Ask me some questions. I don't know if I covered it well enough.
Okay, now you can go to the VA. Just go to the VA deal, and here's the thing that I see: airborne hazard and open burn pit registry. So again, go to the VA Department of Veterans Affairs, airborne hazards and open burn pit registry. I think that's a site that you can ask for or you can Google, and I think you can learn a lot about it. We need to get every veteran who served in the Gulf Wars to basically go in and fill this out, because they need the research. They are helping guys, and they're doing a lot towards dealing with these issues.
And let's be a little bit more specific,
okay,
as opposed to the VA place. You can tell who's not real tech savvy on the show.
Okay.
And let me read it here. It's veteran.mobilehealth.va.gov. Start there. Or the simplest way is Google VA Burn Pit Registry, which will take you directly to the site. Fairly easy to do, but it's important information. With everything else, we need to start doing the research to help take care of our people. And this also gives our congressmen the justification to spend the money. When they see the numbers, it creates a moral imperative, if you will. But I want to come back as you use that term, moral injuries, and talk a little bit about moral injuries, especially as it relates to this.
Well, Chuck, it's kind of interesting that last year the Military Officers Association, it picked 3 topics to address during our annual advocacy and action campaign with Congress. The top one that we addressed were toxic exposures and burn pits. And so we tried to connect with every single congressman and both senators to talk to them about this issue. And I will tell you, Chuck, even though many of us feel it's a moral imperative, and many of the people we spoke with said it was a moral imperative despite the cost, the bottom line is that the cost has kept Congress from passing a number of toxic exposure laws that are on the books, waiting to get more co-sponsors. They haven't been passed primarily due to the cost. And if you really, I know that, not everybody's a policy wonk, but if anybody's interested, they can get with me and I can give you how much the Congressional Budget Officer thinks, taking care of these issues will cost the VA because of the presumed increase in VA service-connected, illnesses. And I can even tell you who voted against those bills. It's shocking.
That would be really interesting.
Yeah. How can we get a hold of you? I mean, I've got your phone number on my speed dial and your email, but how can other people get a hold of you?
Well, my telephone number hasn't been a secret for years. It's 817-683-2870. So I'd appreciate it if you texted me, with your name and your interest, because I do get a lot of phone calls. Many of them from telemarketers, so a text would work great. And then I have an email address, and I'll say it, then I'll do it phonetically. So it's vgws56@gmail.com. That's Victor, Golf, Whiskey, Sierra, 56@gmail.com. And, I welcome, your contact because I have an ulterior motive. I can hook you up with how you can advocate for many veterans issues to change laws and policies at both the state level and the federal level. We can make it so easy, just filling in your name, address, and hit a button, and it goes to your congressman and your state reps. Thank you.
All right, we're going to come back and say that again one more time before we finish up. But the other thing that I want to talk about with that is not only do we need the research, but we need to have people involved, because when the things that I have heard and experienced, and you have personal experience, when they get one of these diseases that are caused by burn pit problems, they seem to be voracious. They seem to be just blowing the doors off, going to stage 4 cancers or diseases very quickly.
Well, Jim, biologically speaking, they really don't happen as quickly as they seem to happen. It can start, immediately at the burn pit site. Your cells start to, become a little bit hyperplastic, as they say, and that cancer can start right there and may not show itself until, 10 years after. And that's why it's really important that certain bills get passed, because you may not get that cancer until 5 years after, 10 years after. And there is a bill that I cannot recall if it was passed by both the House and Senate, but basically it would extend the time you could put in a claim from 5 to 10 years after. And also extend the time where you could register for VA health care if you have any illness that you think is tied to your service during the Gulf Wars.
And one of the things is, the faster you find out, the faster you have this kind of information, the better chance of survivability you got, correct?
Yes. That's one of the things that is true across the board. The sooner you know, the sooner you can deal with it, and inevitably the cheaper the cheaper the cost of care is. You're pointing at something.
Yeah, all right. I want to switch the conversation just a little bit because this is Women's History Month. Ginger, tell us about women's history, transition training, and what's going on with women as far as the VA goes.
All right. Well, Jim, I like to say that, it's based on supply and demand. So over the last 20 years, because of our engagements in Iraq, Afghanistan, and throughout the world, women have really stepped up in numbers as well as in performance in the military. And so it turns out that the largest growing demographic in the United States among veterans is the women demographic, believe it or not. And so the VA has realized that women in general were shying away from the VA. And so, especially over the last couple of years, they've basically been targeting more programs specifically at women veterans. So, supply and demand, there is now a Center for Women Veterans, the CWV program, and you can find that, on the VA website, and Chuck will give you that information in a second, because he's got glasses he can put on. And basically, there is just so many helpful things there. But the best thing that's on there, and I just found this today, believe it or not, is that they have started incorporating women's health transition planning while you're still serving in the military, so that you'll have an opportunity to really do a decent transition from military healthcare services into VA services. They've got a handbook that's about 100 pages, and they also have a training program that anybody can get on and sign up for to learn about, what do you do as you shift from active duty? How do you understand the VA? What services are available specifically for women?
This is something we've seen in the last 10, 20 years. The military has improved its transition program so much. But the problem is, when you go to get out, there's this tendency to check the boxes. You're not really paying attention. Your pack's already hit the ground. You're ready to punch out. So, and I'm going to make this real easy. All of this is available on the VA website, and they have a search bar, a search window. And just get on there and Google women's health transition, those 3 simple words.
One of the things that I deal with a lot of seniors that are even a few of them World War II, I did when I first got started, but Korean and others. And the first thing they tell you is the paperwork's too difficult. This is too hard to get into. We have veteran county service officers throughout the state of Texas. We have VA accredited reps throughout the nation. You don't have to do the paperwork by yourself. There are ways to make it real easy, and that's important for you to know. So if you want to know more, just contact us through the Veterans Impact Show. This is Jim Blythe, Chuck Wright, and we're with the great Ginger Simonson. We're going to be right back after these words from all of our partners. Thank you for being with us. Thank you for sharing the YouTube. Thank you for sharing Facebook. Thank you for subscribing as well. Thank you. This is Jim and Chuck, and we're here for you every week.
We would really appreciate it if you subscribe to the channel as we continue to grow with what we're doing. We started this back in 2015, 2016. I don't remember.
15.
Was it 15? But we're really, in a lot of ways, we're rebooting. We have rebranded the show. We have a new mission, and that mission is Charlie Mike. And Charlie Mike stands for Continue the Mission. It's one of the reasons I was so excited that Ginger was able to step in when we had a last-minute change. One of the people that I know in the veteran space who truly embodies continuing the mission. She does countless hours of work. She doesn't get paid for a lot of it. Most of it is volunteer work. Don't get paid for any of it.
I'm retired, Chuck. I joined the retired rolls on September 2020.
Wow.
I trained a young Marine.
Hoorah.
Casey Brown to take my place as,
I know Casey.
well, you're going to have to come out to Veterans Point in Roanoke, Texas, and meet him and check out our
That was another
Veterans
one of the
Center.
things. And do you know, I have never been to Veterans Point, but let's talk about Veterans Point for a second. This is something you helped create out in Roanoke, which is kind of our Denton Veteran Resource Center. Although
Is that the same place where you had the Chris Kyle Center?
Yes, Casey, when he took over, being a younger veteran and a family man with 2 children, he thought that he wanted to convey a sense of community and family that he didn't know if he could actually get with the Chris Kyle Center. He felt that, maybe more SEALs would come and not maybe, the corpsmen who also,
Right.
have issues, or the kids who might come and join our bounce houses or something like that. So he changed the name, shortly after, I brought him on board because he's young and I wanted to know his thinking. And so basically Veterans Point is a place where veterans and family members can gather. It's an old converted Lena Pope home for children on the grounds of Victory Therapy. And basically, we have about 7 rooms, and within those rooms, we have a nice library, we have a computer room, we have a weight room, and of course, we have big rooms, open spaces where we can gather, have peer support groups, have training sessions, and best of all, well, we got a couple of things that are best of all, but we also have outside patio where we can barbecue, grill, and have big events, and 2 special rooms for a counselor as well as for any community partner that would like to come in, sit at our desk, and meet with a veteran or family member to help them out.
Chuck, I'd like for us to maybe set up and show that movie, The Baby Boomer's Dilemma, because there's a lot of people in Denton that are Vietnam era that are my age and now approaching your age. I'm messing with you.
That's okay.
Welcome back to the Veterans Impact Show. Thanks to our great sponsors, Fairway Independent Mortgage Corporation and the Texas Veterans Chamber of Commerce. Now, let's continue this conversation. We've got the great Ginger Simonson, who without a doubt embodies continuing the mission. So, Ginger, you've got something there that you're looking at, the MOAA. Tell us what you wanted to bring this up here. Combat injury, moral injury, some of these things.
Well, basically, I guess what I want to convey is if you see a gap in your community, whether it's, related to mental health, property taxes, you name it, something that veterans are suffering with because a law doesn't, address it, let me know. And we can start to see, is there a way to affect policy change? Can we change the law? And so I personally work this at both the federal and the state level as a MOA member, but also as a lifetime member of the VFW. And all the veteran service organizations make it so easy for you to just type in your name, address, email address, and send your issues to your congressmen, to your senators, and to your state reps.
So let me throw this in because you were just talking about that. Texas has a great program. And you want to know how easy it is to find out? It's whorepresentsme.com.
Really?
Whorepresentsme.com. And that will pull up, and you probably have to put your zip code in there, but that's going to tell you who your senators are and their connections, that's your U.S. senators, your U.S. congressmen, your state senator, and your state house rep instantly will be at your fingertips. But the beauty of it is how to contact them directly. You can cut and paste a lot of these requests. And keep in mind one thing, and I have been in meetings where we're dealing with a state rep and people will start talking about the VA. Well, that's a federal issue. And it's really simple. Keep it in their lane to keep it clear to them. But one of the things Ginger and I are going to do, and we're going to do this year through the Texas Veterans Chamber and through several other organizations is we are going to create a ask list. We're going to create a list of veteran issues, and we're going to target it. Part of it's going to be at the federal level, part of it's going to be at the state level, that we can share statewide to talk about these issues. Obviously, the burn pit issue is a federal issue. We need that done through the VA. And that's one of the things that this show is trying to address is, face it, the wars are over. Well, the Ukrainian war is not over, but we're not fighting in that one now. Or we're not fighting directly in that one. It's not involving our people. So veterans are falling off the radar. We are, as a community, no longer at the forefront of people's minds. And there's an element of that's okay because there's some other things going on, but there's an element of, I don't want to see veterans get shunned to the side. And I'm old enough, and I'm an Air Force brat, so I have seen it. And it goes back a lot of years. We saw this after Vietnam. We saw this after Gulf War I, and now we're starting to see it after the global war on terror.
As we reduce in numbers, Ginger and Chuck, one of the things is we're not getting the message out there about what a life-changing, positive thing being part of the military is. Mm-hmm. It changed my life. I know it changed you guys' life. And if we don't have young men and women that are learning about this and finding out what they need to know to go forward with their life and what a life-changing thing that would be, we're making a mistake. So veterans need to lead the way. I tell you what, though, we're about to wrap up. I'd like to close with a prayer and say, Dear Lord, I thank you for veterans like Ginger Simonson and for Chuck and for Ginger's husband and for so many who step up to the plate. Their motto is, if not me, then who? God, thank you for blessing us with these men and women. Thank you for protecting them. Thank you for protecting our active duty military. We pray this and say thank you for all you're doing for us in the name of the Lord God Almighty. Thank you so much. We know you by many names. Thank you. In Christ, I say amen.
Amen.
Did it again. We'll tell you after we shut
All right. Thank you. Thank you for being part of the Veterans Impact Show. Thank you, Facebook. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Be a part of us. We'll be back next Saturday. We've got a really outstanding program. Also, check in with us on the Baby Boomer Dilemma. We've got a great thing to help you if you're looking at retirement. Please contact us. This is the Veterans Impact Show.